We now continue with Smurf.
I am Indian American. My family lived in the States, but we would go to India every summer to visit relatives. Up until this point, we had always stayed in Bangalore and made day trips to a village not far outside the city to visit my uncle's family. In 2017, when I was 16, they invited us to stay with them in their village, Mullayanaguri, a mountain, for a few weeks, and make day trips to Bangalore instead. My parents figured why the hell not. It would give us more family time and would be less noisy and busy than the city. Now, my uncle's son, Pratap, was fairly rebellious and had rejected his parents' attempt to arrange a marriage for him with a girl from the same village and caste for years. He didn't want an arranged marriage. He wanted a love marriage, and he held out for years, having one brief chaste relationship after another with girls from Bangalore that never went anywhere, and fizzled out before reaching a point where he could introduce them to his family. By this point he was desperate, and at least partly driven by horniness to find a wife. It seemed he might soon give in to his parents' wishes and meet with a girl they felt would be a good match for him. However, after they arranged for the two to meet, he had cancelled on them and told them he found a girl named Rupina he was serious about, and that he wanted them to meet her instead. This all came about, my parents said, because Pratap had seen his older sister, Savrita, married off in an arranged marriage to a man that at first had seemed kind and upstanding, but had later been outed as a violent alcoholic. He killed her and then himself one evening after she chastised him for his heavy drinking just a few years prior. Pratap did not want to make a mistake by marrying a chameleon. We got there while this was unfolding, after he had cancelled and before the meeting with his new GF. It was late at night when we got into the village after taking a taxi from Bangalore, which had itself followed a non-stop flight from Chicago into Bangalore. My dad and mom set up in a spare room and I got the couch. It was dead quiet at night out there. The houses were not separated by much distance, but most of the folks were very conservative farmers who slept early and woke early. The first night's sleep was blissful. In the morning, I went with my dad down to the corner store to buy a few essentials, like toothbrushes and toothpaste, as well as some of his favorite treats, like peanut chicky. And on the way back, he remarked that my cousin's new GF was coming over for breakfast with my cousin, and would probably be there when we got back. We passed our uncle on the way back, delivering our dirty laundry and their own to the local Derby washerman. He told us that Pratap was home with his girlfriend, and to expect breakfast. Sure enough, when we got back, the smells of masala dosa, idli, vada, and black tea greeted us, along with a woman we had never seen before. A beautiful woman, well out of my cousin's league. She was standing beneath the tree in my aunt and uncle's small yard that Pratap, his sister, and I had all played on when we were younger during my summer day trips to their village. Pratap was there with her, and they were talking with my aunt. The first few minutes I laid eyes on this woman are seared into my memory alongside a peculiar feeling. Looking back, it was her intense stare that stood out the most. When she looked at you, her eyes and the expression they wore seemed to move freely of the rest of her face, like how you can tell a fake smile when a person does not smile in the eyes. Her fashion was out of place too. She was wearing boots, which was unusual for anybody over there. She had a sweet, soft voice and was friendly and extroverted, but she was always clinging to my cousin, her arm looped around his, almost as if she was using him to balance. She seemed uncomfortable on her own 2 feet. Within minutes, the peculiar feeling was gone, and I felt pretty enamored with this bubbly, beautiful woman. I don't remember much of the first conversation over breakfast, except that it was the usual hodgepodge of questions that Indian parents ask their children's potential spouses. Where did you go to school? What do you do for a living? How much do you earn? And of course, what is your caste? My uncle and aunt are fairly liberal-minded for village-dwelling Indians, owed partly to the fact that they had previously been in Bangalore for their education as young people before returning. They did not mind this woman's answers to their questions, and they did not mind her different, lower caste. I remember a lot of friendly discussion and laughter, her laughter mostly, extremely sweet and inviting. I soon forgot her strangeness, and felt a twinge of jealousy over my cousin's relationship with this beautiful, sweet girl. The one thing I do remember very clearly, because I saw it for myself, and because my father remarked upon it, was that my cousin looked tired, sleepless even, and it showed a lot on his face. Bags under his eyes, faint wrinkles, and so forth. My father asked him if he had been getting enough sleep. Wink wink, nudge nudge, and my uncle hushed my father. Pratap just replied that he had been sleeping extremely well, and that he must just need to freshen up a bit. When they left around noon, my uncle and aunt remarked that she seemed very sweet, and a good match for my cousin, but that they think he should meet the girl they had set up for him first, before he makes a decision. My dad was not really interested in his nephew's love life, and made plans for all of us to find a restaurant in the village to eat, or else we would take a taxi back into Bangalore, and then rickshaw around, looking for a good place to get our grub. My uncle said there would be no need for that. There was a little outdoor market in the village where we could get lunch, so that is what we did. We stayed there most of the day, chatting about nothing important and enjoying the fresh air, and when we got back to my uncle's house, the sun was setting. We had been eating all day, so none of us were hungry, so we just had some tea and relaxed in front of the TV, watching ridiculous Kannada movies. Near midnight, my uncle and dad retired to bed, and I turned off the TV and curled up on the couch not long after. My aunt and mom were long asleep. It could not have been any later than 3 in the morning when I woke up and needed to take a piss. Their bathroom was not inside. Like many Indian village homes, they had an outhouse with a floor toilet, like the kind that is common across Asia. I stumbled out into the quiet dark and clumsily slammed shut and latched the door of the outhouse behind me, hoping I did not wake anyone sleeping inside. I relieved myself and turned around to unlatch the wooden door to the outhouse and beat my retreat back inside, when I saw movement through the gap in the door. In the faint light of the moon, I caught a glimpse of the color and texture of brown skin through the gap, and could tell that the movement was very near the door. The next moment, the same moonlight illuminated an eye peering through the gap, as whoever was standing on the other side attempted to pull it open. I heard a raspy, high-pitched woman's voice say something in Kannada that I could not quite make out. I was so startled by the gaze of a stranger and the sudden forceful attempts to yank the door open that I yelled out loudly, "What the fuck?" and must have woken up my father, because I heard the door to the house open again, and he came outside, asking if I was alright. The eye and whoever it belonged to had vanished into the night. I unlatched the outhouse door when I heard my father's voice nearby, and stumbled over to the porch where he was standing. He asked me what was up, and I relayed to him the encounter I had just had. He cocked an eyebrow while listening, and then said, "You were probably just half asleep." By this point the adrenaline was wearing off, and I asked him about what I thought the figure on the other side of the door had said to me. Sundara. I did not speak any Kannada. I regret not learning, but my parents never spoke it at home, except in India. My dad told me it means handsome, and laughed. Even in your nightmares, the girls are eager. I did not find his jokes about it funny, and I was still shaking a bit from the encounter. We went back inside, locked the door, and went back to sleep. It took me an hour to fall back asleep, aided by the last remaining bits of jet lag. The next morning, Pratap came over for breakfast again, this time without his GF. He looked even more haggard than before, like he had been under an extreme amount of stress. In his hair, I caught the glimmer of a bit of grey. His parents asked him to meet with a girl that they thought would be good for him, and after much cajoling, he finally relented and was convinced. My uncle asked him where his GF was, and he said she had gone back to her village, up Malayanaguri, and that Pratap must have misheard his GF. I shrugged, but my parents seemed uneasy when before they had been fairly light-hearted. The meeting my aunt and uncle set up for the coming Saturday was 3 days off. The day before the meeting, my aunt and uncle received a frantic, shrill phone call that I later learned was from the mother of the woman Pratap was to meet. She was in a panic and crying as she asked my aunt if she had seen her daughter recently. It turns out that the daughter had gone for a walk to the village well earlier in the day and had not returned. Her bucket was found overturned beside the well, its water spilled. In the mud near the exterior of the well were found a single pair of footprints leading away from the well. The village headman was going house to house and organizing us into a search party. Pratap was at home at this time, and we all joined in the search, but turned up nothing. The disappearance of this girl cast a shadow over our trip, and we felt uneasy staying in the village, so my dad made arrangements for us to leave on Monday. It was Friday night. Pratap left early the next morning before I got up, as his GF was back in the village, and the two of them took his moped into Bangalore. It was nearly a 5-hour trip, but he could not be dissuaded despite the recent tragedy. We watched him ride off to pick her up and figured we would not see him again until after we had made our way to Bangalore. I told my dad I was going out to the corner store for some soda and chips. He gave me a few hundred rupees, barely interrupting his conversation with his brother, and away I went. About halfway there, I saw something that gave me reason to pause. Rupina was walking arm in arm with a man I have never met, a very old man, quite a bit older than Pratap. She locked eyes with me, smiled, and waved before saying something to the old man before he shambled off. I was fixed in place as she approached me, now more aware than ever of how drop-dead gorgeous she was. My heart was racing from the excitement of merely being near her. She greeted me, and I asked her what she was doing in the village, as I thought she had gone to Bangalore with Pratap, but she told me they had stopped for drinks on the road first, and that he was waiting for her. I asked her who that man was, and she told me he was her father. I didn't have any reason to doubt her, and it made sense to my horny, distracted 16-year-old brain, so I just nodded, and she patted me on the shoulder and stumbled off. But there was something else I had noticed, that I began to notice even more as she walked further away from me. Her gait was awkward and unnatural, like she had trouble taking each step. I stared after her for the longest time when suddenly, after a while, she turned back to look, and I felt my blood curdle at the expression on her face, because there was no expression. It was as if her eyes were dead, and the muscles in her face had been completely relaxed. Everything drooped, but I remember the face that she wore when she saw that I was looking. It transformed into the most sinister, wolf-like stare I had ever seen, as the skin pulled back, well beyond its normal tautness. I felt myself transfixed as she stumbled awkwardly forward, all the while staring back at me, until she turned down a far street and disappeared behind some distant houses. I did not dare turn my back until she vanished. Then I booked it back home, empty-handed. When I stumbled inside, I found my parents and aunt and uncle in an excited state. My uncle was holding an axe, and to my surprise, Pratap was there. They were heatedly discussing something in Kannada for a few minutes before they noticed I was home. It was then that my parents filled me in. Pratap had not gone to Bangalore with Rupina. He had left on his moped to pick her up for the trip, but had caught her in the company of another lover, a man much older than himself. They had argued, and she told him he would get over it soon enough and accept her for who she is. She told him that her love with a dash was true love, like what they had, and that he should understand. Pratap, upon hearing this, had come running back home and left her there with the old man. Then my uncle informed me that the much older man, Adash, was the name of a teenage boy who had gone missing from the village just 2 years before after he went up to Malayanguri by himself one afternoon. That upon hearing of his decrepit, elderly appearance, and bearing in mind Pratap's more and more haggard look, they finally asked him if he had been sexually active with Rupina, which he replied in the affirmative. They then knew. Knew what? I was left hanging for a moment before my uncle told me that Rupina was not a living woman. The way she walked, her uncanny beauty, and the way that any man who touched her ripened like a fruit left out in the sun, gave away her true nature. She was a churl, the vengeful spirit of a wronged woman, and they were going to kill her. Either they were crazy, very crazy, or they were very right, and I was torn between both possibilities. I voiced my doubts, and my uncle glanced outside the window at the tree in their yard, the same tree that Savrita, Pratap, and I had climbed and laughed on together as children. He showed me the axe in his hand. We will find out the truth soon enough. And out the front door he went, making a beeline for the tree, where he swung the axe back and then toward the tree. I shit you not, the moment the axe wedged itself into the trunk of that tree, a shrill wailing started up in the distance toward the mountain. This only seemed to further excite my uncle as he swung furiously at the groove in the tree again and again until he had nearly worn through it. With each swing, the wailing drew closer, but was still distant enough that we could not witness its source. The wailing was at its height now, and some villagers, including the headman, had gathered to watch my uncle cut down the tree. "I'm sorry, Savrita. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Forgive me," he kept saying in Kannada, later translated by my father to me. When the tree was felled and the wailing stopped abruptly, and my uncle, covered in sweat, collapsed at the stump and cried. His wife joined him, and they cried together there. Thankfully, nothing else came up over the rest of the weekend, and on Monday, we took a taxi into Bangalore. We did not see Rupina again before we left, and as far as we know, she was not seen in the village again after we had gone. We did not make any more trips out to the village while we were there, and I have not been back to India since. I saw my aunt and uncle one last time when they came to Bangalore with Pratap to see us off the day of our flight back. Last I heard, Pratap is happily married to a woman from the same village of the same caste in a union arranged by their parents. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Alright, someone help me out here. I live somewhere in Santa Cruz, Goa, which is in India. There are two very strange things that happen, and I have no explanation for it. There is a small private cemetery nearby, and on most nights, we hear dogs barking at someone for quite some time. They start from the cemetery and they keep barking and following. We assume the spirit, the entire road. Most of us are just used to this now, and prevent looking outside when this happens. Second incident. There is a small distance left between the side of my house and my neighbor's house, and we stay in a ground plus one. This is a 2-story house, 1 ground floor and 1 more above. My room is the one facing the neighbor's house on the first floor. During the night, post 2 a.m., I have heard the sound of anklets literally running from one side to the other. The sound comes from my side of the window. I have assumed many times that there could be people in my neighbor's house walking or running to get stuff outside their house. Who knows? Maybe someone is working the night shift. Maybe they are helping out someone with luggage or something. My mind has tried to rationalize the excuses, but deep down, I know that no human would run repeatedly back and forth with pail so loud at that time of the night. It has happened so often. I also tried to text my brother who stays in the room next to mine, and I asked him if he could hear it. He said yes, it's more like an open secret now. But something tells us that we are not supposed to look outside. Something deep within tells us to mind our own business, and whatever it is won't harm us. We even have a CCTV camera there, but something tells me and my brother not to spy. And something definitely tells me not to look out of my window that directly faces the side. Call it intuition. Also, I have researched like crazy regarding this over the internet, and the closest answer I have found is the sound of crickets. Sound like payal, but that does not match with this. It's like payal, anklets, running constantly from one side to the other and back for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Those neighbors have changed over the years, but the sound is consistent. In Goa, we also have this tale of Rakandar, the village protector, but I wonder why he would walk between the compound walls. He should ideally be walking on the street, right? Our house faces the street, and the payal sound always comes from the left side of our house. Well, I don't know. I guess we just have to peacefully learn to coexist. This happened in 2015 in Kaziranga, Assam in India. We, a family of 4+4+2, went on a 2-week trip across Assam from Kolkata. It's me, my parents, grandmother, paternal aunt, and her husband and their 2 kids, along with the travel agent / family friend and his wife. We booked 2 cars and reached the bungalow in Kaziranga at around 8 p.m. in the night. I vividly remember the night because it was the first time I had seen the moon that bright red. It was a full moon with this light golden light from the moon. It was breathtaking. Our bungalow was located near the edge of the national park. It was a 1-storied house which had its own lawn in the front. There were only 5 rooms along with a big restaurant and a large sitting room. Right in front of the bungalow there was an unfinished house. 2 of the rooms were left bare, with 2 walls still undone. Right next to it, there was a big coconut tree, in whose shade we would sit in the front lawn. Before I start retelling the incident, I need you all to know that my uncle claims to see the supernatural. We have grown up hearing this, listening to him recall his experiences in various situations in the most dark and empty of places. None of our trips as a family were complete without us kids cornering him and making him tell us a ghost story that he swears came from experience, but we also believe that he made most of those up, as it seemed quite difficult for us to believe that he has actually experienced all of those situations. Coming back to the incident, it seemed that everything was normal when we reached the bungalow that night. The cook, the manager, and his wife welcomed us, and after a brief rest, we had a light dinner. We were planning to wake up early the next day for our elephant safari. Next morning, when we met at the car, I was still drowsy. When I was sitting in the car, I saw something in white stand behind the car next to the edge of the property, staring at us. Thinking it was probably the cook's wife, I gave it no thought. On the way to the park, my uncle was asking my aunt in hushed whispers if everything was alright with her. It was on our way back from the safari that my uncle confessed that he could not sleep last night because he heard sniffling sounds all throughout the night. Obviously, it was not my aunt. That, and coupled with the fact that he saw a silhouette in white run past the lawn back and forth, there were sheer curtains drawn. It was a very spooky situation. After having our breakfast, it was the travel agent's wife who asked the cook if the other lady, manager's wife, stays in the bungalow at night. He replied in the negative, saying she goes back to their house, which is next door, to take care of the kids. All of us recounted the creepy incidences that happened, and I kid you not, the man ran inside, and out came the manager. Their first response was to convince us not to leave. They kept saying that the area of the bungalow is protected, saying that there was nothing in here that could harm us. We forced them to tell us everything after threatening them that we would leave if they don't. Basically, the story goes like this. This lady took her own life in the small under-constructed building right next to the bungalow a couple of decades back. Since then, the building is haunted, and the lady is often seen by tourists and villagers crying and screaming. Several months back, some tourists had a terrible time when they saw the lady inside the bungalow. She had climbed up on the coconut tree. According to the driver of the tourist family, he could see her swing the tree back and forth. After that incident, the manager had done a bit of a puja ritual in the property and even tried to reconstruct the building next door. After the construction, workers fell sick. They stopped the project and let it be that way. We finished our evening car safari and hightailed our ass out of that hotel that night. We may live in India. Rumors going around about the local witch attacking people. Elders tell me not to open the door if there is a woman asking for food or onions. Witches are capable of killing right on the spot, especially men. I am tired as fuck, coming back from outside. There is just a woman in our yard. I don't know why she chose our yard to enter the house, but she is there. Asking for roti, food in Indian. I nope the hell out of there and call my dad. She tries to hypnotize my dad. Mom tells her to go away, or else she will start praying and wreck her. Mom lights up a matchstick. She freaks out, runs away. We could not even see where she went. She just disappeared without a trace. It is said that Indian witches have long hair and their legs are backwards. I heard from my friend about an incident that happened in his village in the Western Ghats on the coastal side. A married couple lived on the outskirts of the village. They had a kid around 5 to 6 years old. Their house was a bit farther from other houses, and jungle on the other side. It was a typical village of the Western Ghats where you won't find any network. There were hardly even a few streetlights there, and almost nothing on the edge of the village. Their house had another door on the back side towards the jungle. The man went to farm every day and returned by sunset. It was raining that day. From evening, it was constant downpour, so the lady stayed inside her house with her kid. Nobody visited her house, nor did she go to see the other neighbors. It was way past sunset and quite late at night, and her husband had not returned yet. She didn't worry as it was raining, so it must have slowed him down, is what she thought. Later, when she prepared dinner, and after a long wait, it was still raining the same. It must have been quite a while later. Then she heard a groaning sound near the back door. She thought it was some wild boar or some animal, so she peeked out from the window. her eyes found her husband sitting near the door like a meditating saint. He was getting drenched in rain and facing the jungle. His eyes did not even blink. He just kept looking at the jungle and groaning. She called his name, but he did not respond. She was scared to go outside and talk to her husband. She went near the door and poked a stick through the gap in the wooden door. She wanted to poke him with the hope that she could bring him to his senses, but he did not respond. She said it felt like she was poking rock instead of skin. That's what it felt like. She was terrified and took a knife from the kitchen. She held her son in her arms and sat chanting for the whole night. The groaning did not stop, not even once. The man was getting drenched from evening throughout the night, without a shiver or a stutter. She heard the rain stop eventually, and heard people with their morning chores outside the houses in the village. She took one leap of faith and opened the front door, and ran to the nearest person that she found. The news spread, and a few men dared to go check on the man near the back door of the house. They found him fallen on the ground near the door, completely drenched. When he woke up, he was clueless about what happened to him. The last thing that he remembered was that the rain had blocked his usual route, and he had to take a different route. On this route, he passed a small temple underneath a tree. After that, he doesn't even know what happened. It was believed that the deity of that temple possesses the people who are being followed by evil spirits, and makes sure that the evil spirits do not enter their house by guarding the house. When my friend told me the story, we evaluated all of the logical reasons of that behavior. Probably the man was drunk, still sitting upright all night under the rain without shivering. Any normal human would have died of hypothermia, and the rock-hard body, the loud and continuous groaning without taking a breath and not blinking. It did not make any logical sense, but the lady was way too spooked to be lying about it. I don't know whether this was a ghost or not, but it was definitely the most scariest incident of my life so far. This happened when I was about 11 years old. My father was invited to perform a spiritual initiation ceremony known as disca. Because of this, he had to stay an extra day to attend a religious event where the Manas was recited. An epic Hindi poem about Lord Rama was recited. I don't exactly remember the name of the village, but it was about 100 kilometers south of Varanasi. Used to live in Varanasi at that time. The village was surrounded by Vidya Range and was on the border of MP-UP, a bit of a Naxalite region at the time. We arrived there around 3 to 4 p.m. The first thing that happened after arrival, whole family was with us, was a kid standing on a terrace fell down and started bleeding from his head. Thankfully, it was just 1 floor high, so he did not sustain a serious head injury. The kid claimed he was pushed, however there was no one on the terrace at that time. As soon as I heard this, I started shitting bricks. Later that night, we were served delicious traditional dishes, which was a baked wheat ball with lentil curry and mashed spiced vegetables. Our beds were prepared outside, near an old colonial-looking house as it was cooler. Sisters slept on terrace. That night I was not able to sleep, as I had a constant feeling of someone watching me. I did not have the courage to even take a leak. I didn't see anyone, but had severe anxiety and shortness of breath. Similar stuff happened with my other 2 sisters. Next day in the morning, I was adamant to leave as soon as possible before night. A car was called, however, it broke its fuel tank just before entry of the village. The driver apparently was drunk. Sadly, we had to stay there another day. Next day after the disca, Manas started and went through the whole night. I didn't think I would be able to sleep there for one more day. However, I was able to sleep without any issues, as were my sisters. Later, I came to know that the people who called us were facing some supernatural shit, and the poem was recited to stop these things. This experience could be psychological due to inability to adapt to the area, sleeping out in the dark, even though I have never had such issues. I still don't know what to make of this experience.